And welcome to another week of what I'm growing this week. Again, this week there's not that much to really cover. I did plant some new seeds, but I did it yesterday, so they haven't really germinated yet. So probably by next week we have a lot more to talk about. So real quick, as you can see, there's a lot of seed trays. A lot has been going on. This one we covered mostly last week. I don't think there's anything new in that one. Up here, we don't have anything new. This one, I'm slowly removing seedlings and planting them on so they could keep growing. And down here, we do have something. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. That right there is a Delphinium. It's Delphinium. There's the label. Ludica Lauren. So when we think delphiniums, we usually think this really tall plant that has blue, purple, pink, or white flowers. Well, there's a couple of California species that have red or orange flowers, and this one comes from one of those species. It's kind of short-lived. We'll probably only get 2 to 3 years. Is what I read online. I've also read that it could be long-lived too, so I guess it's probably depends on the conditions. But I think in my yard, it should probably be long-lived. It's a drought-tolerant species, so it differs from some of the other delphiniums we're more familiar with. I think it only grows like 2 feet tall, red flowers in the summer, which are really great for attracting hummingbirds, and that's why they're red. Red is that they evolved to take advantage of the presence of hummingbirds. It's going to look nice. It's going to be in a part shade location. So, yes, it's drought tolerant, but I think our desert sun and heat might be just a little bit too much for it. So that's why it's going to be and have some shade during the day. And it's barely coming up, and the soil here is really dry. And I talked about that last week, about that ongoing issue of the soil and some of the trays drying up too quick. So I think I'm actually going to once I get the majority of these guys either resown somewhere else or germinating, I'm going to get rid of these sow trays and just use these. I noticed with these, they hold on to the moisture better. It gives me more time to get the plant to actually bush up before it gets transplanted. And again, it holds on to the moisture better. And that's what I want, because if you have your seed and it's barely growing and it dries up, the seed case will actually clamp back down onto the growing stem and cut it, and then get seedlings dead. So I don't want that. And I think that's why some of the stuff has not germinated. It was probably germinating and then it dried up and killed it. So yeah, probably going to get rid of these pretty soon. What else do we have? I know there was one other thing in these older seed trays that I was really interested in. Oh, before we move on, we have this one, which is the winter annual seed tray with the lupines and so on. Stuff is coming up. So we have the Facilia campulata coming up right there. And then we have the lupines. If I could find one to focus right there, and it's lifting up a head of soil with it. That's pretty good. I'm pretty excited for that. And where is it? I need to find it. Here it is. That little guy right there is a red heart poker. It's Nephafia lorthii. It's a pretty big red heart poker. It's pretty similar to Nephafia Heskins. Typical red hot poker flower, but I think this one's a pretty fat poker instead of being slim. So it comes in the red and yellow. Hummingbirds like it, although in its native land, it comes from Africa, there is no hummingbirds. They have sunbirds, which is an example of convergent evolution. Growing habit of this plant, it's pretty succulent. It kind of looks like an aloe. Will clump up over time. Pretty easy to take care of. Only real maintenance you will probably have to do with it is cutting off the dead leaves, because it could get kind of cluttered with dead leaves as it ages and it makes it look messy, and getting rid of the old flower stalks. I'm pretty happy to have it coming up. So both species of red hot poker I'm growing, the Pfaffia northii and Reticulata are growing, which is awesome. Because I've tried growing red hot pokers before from seed, and they had not had any success. So I'm pretty happy with that. So that's that one. And then down here, last week we were talking about stratification in those seeds I had put in the refrigerator. Well, they're coming up. Some of them are coming up. So I'm going to take them out one by one as to not make a mess. So this one is American pokeweed, or Phylloscia americana, and it's a cultivar called Silverstein. You could grow it from seed, and I believe most of the seedlings will come out variegated. American pokeweed in certain parts of the country could be classified as a weed. I don't think here it will be a weed. This one, again, it's variegated. It's kind of a splish-splashy variegation. Some people call it bird poop variegation because it looks like a bird pooped on the plant. I like it. And it's going to go in this tropical border that I'm working on. A word of caution, though, if you're going to grow any of the of this type of any plant in this genus, their berries are poisonous. So if you have curious kids or dogs that like to eat a lot of things, you might want to put this plant out of their reach or not grow it at all. Birds, though, will eat the fruit, and they like the fruit. So it's a good plant if you're attracting birds. But again, do some prior research to see if it's aggressive in your area, because you don't want to introduce an invasive. Another plant that's coming up is this one, which is a clematis. Clematis landachinii. It's an Asian species, has orangey brown, like amber, like tree sap brown flowers. It's really nice, and it's a late bloomer too. So I'm happy to have the seed coming up, burning coming up. And then what else do we have? What else? I'm just double checking. And every time I come back out here, new stuff is coming up. And we have this one, which is Corydalis Orphocarpus. The genus Corydalis is pretty diverse. It's in the poppy family, but if you saw the flower, you wouldn't think it was in the poppy family. This species, it's kind of weedy. It will self-seed itself around. It's not one of the prettiest of the Corydalis family genus. It has white flowers, kind of dirty white with some yellow in the center. But if you're starting off with this genus, I would recommend it. It's super easy to grow from seed. I've grown it a couple times. I wanted to add more to have some more repetition in the bed that's going to go in. And one thing to keep an eye out is if you live up north, this species will stay awake longer, if not be evergreen with you. If you live more down south where there's real strong heat, like here in El Paso, this species will go dormant during the summer. That doesn't mean it's dead. It's just like a bulb, it's taking a rest. And then it will pop back up in fall, continue to be green through winter, flower in the spring. The flowers are pretty good for attracting pollinators, and I think if you have a shady spot, that white, even though it's kind of a dirty white, it will still shine out in a shady spot. Would I recommend planting it under a pine tree or something with heavy shade? I'm not too sure about that. I would say it will make it, but I think that warrants some experimentation. So if anyone has done something like that before, comment down below. Curious. And then the last thing that's coming up here is a native plant. It's a Juncus. And let's see. Yeah, you can see them. Those tiny little green, looks like grass coming up. Well, Juncus is often confused for grass. It looks like grass, but it's in its own group. This species is Junkis Turlensis. It's a native Texan species. I think it's found outside of the Chihuahua Desert region as well. Probably like 4 feet tall. I really like the seed heads on it, which is why I'm growing it. Prefers a little bit moisture in the soil, but I think it could probably pass off some drought too. So I'm excited for that. So we have 2 Juncuses we're growing from seed. The other one is Xiphoides, which I think I've shown in some other videos. And then before we go on, the grass that I talked about last week, the Miscanthus El Dorado, I was hoping it will make it, and it looks like it's going to make it. It looks great. It looks like it's actually throwing off new growth, and I'm pretty excited for that. So hopefully it's rerooting. I don't know why it lost all of its roots. That's still up in the air. I dug around in that area to see if there's grubs, and I only found 1 grub. So I don't know what happened. Maybe it was just too dry there. That could be another thing. It desiccated the roots until it just lost them all. But either way, it looks like it's going to recover. Let's see what winter has in store for it. When it recuperates next spring, I'm going to replant it in the same area, add some manure in there to improve the soil, and hopefully it takes off. So it's doing good. The cuttings are doing good as well. Let's do a quick little checkup on them. The cuttings that you're seeing right there is a plant. It's not a new plant. It's actually in my yard. It's a Hispicus. I can't remember the name, but I'll probably do a highlight video of it later this week, and we could talk about it more. I took these cuttings, though, because usually most people grow it as an annual. I read that it could survive in Zone 8. My yard is a Zone 8, but I think sometimes we kind of border Zone 9. So these cuttings are more of an insurance. If the parent plant dies, I have some cuttings to replace it with. The other cuttings in here are some native plants. All of them are doing great. We have 2 new ones of 2 different Dianthus, and they're doing okay. I took these cuttings because the parent plants just were not looking too good. They got overshadowed by some other plants that were in the wrong space. So I'm hoping these cuttings root and I could replace the parent plants with some young blood. So yeah, those are the cuttings. They're doing good. And there, I put that right there to hold the cover. So I didn't buy any new plants this week except for some bulbs. So the first one will be Crocus Tri-Color. It's a Eurasian species. Flowers early spring, scented, pretty small. So if you actually, all the bulbs I got are pretty on the small side of things. So you're going to want to keep this one towards the front of the border. But I think it's going to do really good and attract early pollinators. Probably mostly, probably some bumblebees and honeybees. I don't think we have too many native bees that are active like in July or February. I don't know. We find out. But yeah, the pollinators, regardless, they need some food early in the year. And also, winter is pretty boring. It's just a bunch of browns and grays. So adding some color early in the season is going to be great. And those are the little bulbs. Another one is Iris Reticulata. It's a small iris. We're probably only getting 2 to 3 inches. The leaves, once the flowers are done, are pretty grassy. So if you want, you could probably hide it with some grasses. So when the leaves are dying back, the grass takes over and hides it. One of the problems with this species for a lot of people is that the first year they will get them to flower. But the second year, these bulbs will make a bunch of nibble bulbs, bulbs. And then those bulbs will take forever to mature and actually flower. So you just end up with a bunch of grassy leaves. I've heard that one of the things that you could do with that is to give it a really good baking. So plant it somewhere where there's a lot of sun and heat, and that will help the bulbs mature quicker. That's usually what I've heard from people that grow it here in like in the UK or up north. Since we live in the southwest, I think that won't be that much of a problem, but we'll see. So yeah, that's going to be an experiment on its own. And the last bulb is this one, Chilodoxia forbicii. Blue flowers, early season, scented as well. This one will be good if you have some light shade to part shade. Brighten up those areas. And again, like the other bulbs we discussed, it's an early bloomer. So yeah, I'm probably going to plant these right after this video. I'm not going to do a video about that planting because I actually have another bulb video that's going to be coming up that I'm excited about. So keep your eye out for that one. So that's pretty much it for this week. There's going to be a couple of videos coming up in this coming week. I found some editing software that was for free that would let me edit my videos better and actually put like plant names and animations and so on. So I'm going to be experimenting with that in the next couple of videos. But yeah, thank you for watching and see you guys soon. Keep on gardening.